All right, good evening. It is 6:30, 18:30 hours, and we are going to proceed with our Budget Committee meeting for today. First of all, it is our last one before the holidays, so all of us, I wish all of you, and we wish all of you the happiest holidays with our families. The first item on the agenda will be approval of minutes of December 11th. Oh,
where am I?
right here.
Oh, okay.
And I'd like to acknowledge Lindsay.
Sorry, Mike.
She has been, as you know, she has the courage that very few of us will ever muster.
Thank you.
And we wish you the best on your fight.
You're the best. I appreciate that. Thank you so
No,
much.
you're the best. So, all right.
Let's do this.
The minutes of December 11th, any changes to them?
I have one.
Yes, sir.
Clarification, page 2. First paragraph that begins, there was a discussion of why Tahoes are preferred. The second to last sentence reads, Chief Cobb explained that the town's pricing reflects the state bid and upfitting cost. And I don't think that's what I heard, because it's not predicated on the state bid. What I heard was, and I didn't go back to the recording, was that we approach dealers, they know we are seeking a particular vehicle, and they give us the best possible pricing. I didn't hear that it's the state's bid price. That was my observation. I don't know, maybe you could clarify that if I'm wrong, Emily. Yeah, here.
Town's pricing reflects the state bid. The town's pricing reflects the state bid. So the price we pay for the cruiser reflects the state bid, and the total cost that I would need reflects the cost of the cruiser and the upfitting. So I'm not sure how to correct that. I just want to talk. The town's pricing reflects the state bid, plus there is an upfitting cost. Would that be?
Something. But my understanding was that the price of the state bid is like $51,000. The price we've secured is $54 and change, which is not the state bid price. Go ahead.
Sorry.
That's fine.
No, not entirely. I think the price that Karen had gotten from state police, which is not the price that we are given from the dealership. We are given the $54,987. I think that's what that is. I don't know where state police or how they get that other different price, but the price that I was given, the state bid price, is from the dealership directly.
Can I add to that as well? It was explained, and correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is that there is a state procurement contract that sets a price, I think it was $54,000 odd, with this dealership in Nashua. So, and I think that the chief came up, Chief Lyon came up and explained that, and I believe you might.
I thought I had
mentioned
touched on
that.
it as
No,
well.
I was just about to add, I believe you mentioned that as well. So there were
Yeah,
two bids that were in the discussion. One was at the state police price that they get, and then there was a second price that was discussed that relates to what the state gets for the towns, or cities or towns to choose to take advantage of. Happens to be from the same dealership, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, and it could very well be that because state police gets dozens of cruisers, I don't know how many they get, that they get a different price. But the quote that I have from McMulkin was of October 24, 2024. Your price, $54,987.
That's the price I remember hearing.
Yeah,
Thank you.
sure.
All right, so let's go to what changes do you wish to have?
Just what Emily said. No, I think it's simply that the pricing reflects a price offered by the dealership, it's not related to the state bid.
That is the state bid. The 54,000, that is the state bid, that is the price for the cruiser.
The state bid, okay. So
So
then maybe there's
I
money
assume the
between-
state contracts with certain dealerships as like preferred vendors and gives them a list of pricing that they can offer for cruisers. Do I have that about right?
Yes, this is the price of the cruiser.
That the state has negotiated with the dealerships?
I think dealerships make certain offers to the state. There's a whole procurement process for every sort of state bid, right down to paper clips for the
So
state.
Sunapee would pay the same price for a cruiser, Franklin would pay the same price for a cruiser, Concord, if they went to that same dealership.
I would assume so. I don't know what other police departments pay, but
Okay.
this is what I have been told what your price is for the town of New London to purchase a cruiser. But we go through McMulkin because they receive the contract from the state for the state bid of police cars or cruisers.
Okay.
There is the,
Yeah, I just want to make sure that we record, we have a proper recording of the words, and if I could ask, then.
It might just simply say it reflects the state bid for towns.
Yeah.
Because I think what Chief said is, what I heard was, the police purchase significantly more vehicles, so they get a lower price
Perhaps.
beyond this
yep.
particular price.
That's my guess. I don't know that.
Okay.
I've never spoken to state police about their cruiser price.
Just to clarify, at the last meeting when that topic, when it was discussed, I did have that example of what the state police was paying, and that was at 51,000, just to clarify.
This may make it, I'm not trying to make this muddier, but as I heard it, yeah, you had the price of the 51,000, and I clearly heard you were referring to that the entire time as the state bid. At the same time, she was referring to this as the state bid, so there was, I mean, now that I'm listening to this, I know, I have what you're saying, but you were using the same words for two different numbers, and that's what the rub is.
We're okay. All right, do I hear a motion to accept the minutes then? Okay. Any other comments, and all those in favor?
Aye.
Accepted as amended. Next is Selectmen's report.
So we haven't had a meeting since your last budget committee meeting, but we did have the community gathering on Monday morning. Thank you for everybody who attended. It was a great turnout. We started off with the presentation about the new septic regulations. Nick Baird, our health officer, did a great presentation. The selectmen are meeting tomorrow, and we're hoping that we will be signing off on that. And again, the effective date for that is not till January 1st, 2026. Janet reviewed the Colby's plan or request for installing lights on the Kelsey Fields on Seamans Road. And then, of course, we had the presentation by Ashley Siebold on behalf of the Police Facilities Advisory Committee about their recommendation to the selectmen to move forward with the Garvey property on Seamans Road. And I think that was it for the gathering. It was well attended, lots of good feedback and questions, and really appreciate everybody who was there.
Lou, are we going to accommodate Chief Lyon and the memo I sent as in advance? Okay. Okay, I copied the committee on 5 questions, suggestions for consideration of budget adjustment, copied Chief Lyon, of course. And these were items that I had on my list of questions at our last meeting, but I think we had committee fatigue, and the agenda and timing didn't allow for them. So that's why I raised them separately and for quick discussion and exchange. And I have an additional copy, couple of copies if anybody wishes them here. And Chief's got it as well. Deplete my sheets.
Again, I apologize for my attire. As I had mentioned, I was on my way out of town. And so thank you very much for entertaining. I will try to be as brief as possible, knowing that you've got a full agenda. There were 3 things that, that Mr. Kelsey had inquired about: medical supplies, radio repair and replacement, office supplies, gasoline, and uniforms and safety equipment. I'll just quickly go through. Medical supplies, if you wanted to adjust that by $1,000, we certainly can do so. I would say that the reason for the medical supplies not being expended, especially the last several years, is because of the COVID pandemic, and so we're still using things like gloves and various things. Instead of ordering those, we receive those through the state, especially since we're a distribution center for personal protective equipment. So hence the reason why we haven't expended those on a 3-year average. So if you wanted to drop that down by $1,000, that would be fine. For line item 366, radio repair and replacement, asking to drop that down by $2,000, I think you were looking for?
Yes.
So unfortunately, this line item wasn't expended last year, and one of the reasons we're acquiring a new utility truck. We're supposed to be using those funds for, we're trying to encumber those funds. We thought that the utility truck would be here sooner, especially after town meeting. Unfortunately, we still have some supply chain issues, and therefore we weren't able to encumber those funds for the installation of the radio for the utility truck. So that those monies will be taken out of this fiscal year. So our batteries, we've got nearly 30 portable battery portables. Each one of those batteries is $200. We have 45 pagers, and the batteries to those, again, we spend several $100s. So in an effort to be more fiscally responsible, I was trying to move some stuff around last year. So I would not recommend reducing that by $2,000. Office supplies, again, we have a half-dozen computers, and we should probably replace those on a more regular basis, and we basically wait until there's an issue. We back them up and then transfer the information over. But if you were to replace those on a 3-year rotation, certainly you're going to be chewing up most of that budget. So I would not recommend reducing office supplies. Diesel, so on an annual basis, I had budgeted $14,000, and you had in here $27,200, and you wanted to drop it down by $11,000.
I think that's a typo on my part. Yeah,
Okay.
I realize that.
Should we?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think we can move.
Okay. And then uniforms and safety equipment. So again, through the Gopher funds, we were grateful to receive funds from the select board and use some of the Gopher funds for personal protective equipment. So we hadn't spent, especially in fiscal year 2023, a fairly significant chunk of monies because we tried to defer that. But when I look at on an annual basis, and certainly like the fuel budget, although we may not expend that, if we have a larger fire, the Hilltop Fire, Prospect Hill, when the manor burned last year, we'll actually have a fuel truck come in and not planned, not budgeted, and fuel up all the mutual aid companies there, especially if it's a long duration fire. So for instance, at the Prospect Hill fire, we were fueled up 3 times in that 17-hour duration, and town of Sunapee was on the hook for that. Also, there's some unplanned, since I do a zero-based budget, there's some unplanned issues like the foam tape back program because of some contaminants in foam that we had with Class B. The town of New London had to pay $2,500 for the disposal of that foam to be properly disposed of. So those are some unforeseen items that pop up periodically. But I'd just like to go back. In 2015, our total budget, we had $1,440 left, 1950. We were, fortunately, I wasn't terminated in 2017 because I was under by $407. And then 36 in 18, $6,400 in 19, $1,700 in 2020, and then you have the differences for the last couple of years. And certainly, again, I think COVID had some impact on what we did and how we did it. But I'm happy to entertain any questions if you have any.
None further, thank you.
Okay, thank you, appreciate it.
We'll go ahead with the agenda. Conservation Commission. We've heard, in previous years, we're aware of what they do, how they do it, and we're looking forward to seeing what you need.
We have it turned on now. How would you like to proceed? Would you like to ask questions on different items? The main budget is slightly reduced from last year when we had an increase, as we had some needs to get the bog finished. The bog is now done. So we did cut back on the intern. Probably the biggest issue is the land acquisition fund, which has been a topic for many, many years with the Budget Committee, and we'd be glad to answer any questions or give our point of view on that, whatever the chairman would like us to do. Go ahead. Well, the Land Conservation Fund, as you know, is a capital reserve fund, and it's important from our point of view to put money aside every year as we build up that account. The Forest Society has talked about towns, setting aside 25% of their land for conservation purposes, and we're probably about 18%. Depends whether you count the lakes or not, but we made some increases last year. We felt the town was very supportive at the town meeting. The amount, that we are asking for, we understand that this is a tough budget year, and we're certainly open to talking about what the amount should be with you folks. And the other thing I would point out is that we also can partner with the Osborne Sergeant, who is much more, who has many more parcels. And as you remember, the time that we got that land for the farming purposes up in town, that was a concerted effort. So certainly the Conservation Commission may, in the future, partner with the trying to raise money and help out the Osborne Sergeant. But Mark?
Only to add to that, that land acquisition, among other things, requires a very patient seller, and when they're dealing with the town. And if we have money in the bank, that certainly won't try their patience as much as if we don't have money. And you know, it's a crapshoot how much, you know, what might become available and what the price might be. And we've sort of settled in on 750,000 as a target amount. And we're going to ask for it every year.
I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
If you included the lakes in your calculation of preserved land, what would that do to the percentage that is now 18%, but state average or recommendation is 25?
Well, I asked Bob Brown that question. He said 18% included the lakes. I don't have the exact
I don't
figure.
think so.
Maybe John does, but it's less than the 25%. But I think the Forest Society talks about land conservation, and they don't include lakes and bodies of water in that
Yeah.
25%.
Calculation.
So my understanding, the size of the town is 16,269 acres. And of that, you have 18% of the land in conservation. And that's 2,928 acres. The lakes make up 1,984 acres of the, so all that together gives you almost 25% of the land that can only be used as conservation type land,
If you count the lakes as land.
if you count the lakes as land. You know, because we're endowed with these lakes, you're sort of holding it against us. And I think that we ought to be considering that, particularly when things are really tight right now. I think you've got probably, what, 492,000 or something like that in your...
The current balance, I think is 400,000.
$426,232,
Okay.
I believe.
Yeah. I think the other thing about New London that we ought to consider is that around the lakes and places like that, we have zoning that is like 2 acre plus zoning. And in those places, where actually one house is conserving quite a bit of land in itself. I like saving land, I really do. But I think right at the moment here, where we've got, and then for those who went to the gathering Friday morning, I think we got a few big ticket items that we really have to consider and have to prioritize over more land. I'm sorry, but
No, I mean, I understand your point of view, John, and looking forward, I don't see it getting any better. I mean, with the state cutting back on the amount of revenue which the state gets and passes it on to the local property taxes, you know, but, you know, land is, they don't make it anymore. Once it's gone, and having it in a fund means you don't have to have a bond or raise taxes in order to make a purchase down the road. But I understand your point of view, given that taxes will come under tight scrutiny this year and probably next year and the following year.
To an observation and a question. When, of the land that we've preserved, do we own it all? Or is it by easement? We own the easements? Or it's a combination?
Yeah, combination.
Okay. I'm delighted to hear about a collaboration with Osborne and other land trusts. I think that's smart. We have similar missions. We may have different methods. I think the financing can get complicated, but man created it. Man can undo that. The other consideration, there's one question and a consideration. Guile Forest, which is not in New London, but we can access as residents, is 7,000 acres of land, untouched. It just happens to be in Springfield. And I think about preservation efforts that have been done and the continuing work of other commissions trying to do the same thing in respective surrounding towns. To me, that's a huge chunk of land, and I would rather take credit for having it in our formula versus solely bounded by town boundaries. The question, that's opinion. A question is, we have a current parcel that is in a legal dispute Is that still there, or is that resolved?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's a dispute. The town's buying the property.
Yeah.
in Low Plains, and it could happen any day now. I've been saying that for 3 years, but I think this is the closest we've ever come, so it should happen.
And acreage-wise, how much is
Acreage
that?
on that is, how many acres? 22,
But it
plus or minus?
accesses that land
And it's, yeah, it abuts,
Right,
it
that's what I
abuts
thought.
other
Okay.
property. yeah.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
I have one question. When it comes to, I don't see it in the budget, but, you know, hiking the Esther Courier, you know, trails and stuff, is there any line item for battling of invasive species that are taken over? Is that part of your responsibility, or?
It's got milfoil, but that's not what you're talking about, right?
I would say it is our responsibility on, you know, the lands that we manage. And
So, but
I mean, there was a project over at Low Plain that was done with Colby Sawyer where it was actually covered over.
Yeah.
And they're monitoring that now. I mean, that's a whole issue of using chemical treatments for knotweed that I think is an area of the town and the selectmen at some point, probably need more information, because there are some states that are actually using these new, quote, new chemicals that don't have any bad effects, but then again, what happens, you know, 10 years down the road, whether there'll be, you know, bad effects. So knotweed is a serious community statewide problem. I mean, it's such an invasive species that weeds out other natural species.
So I would say, yeah, that is included in the annual appropriation.
Oh, I see, under general government, okay. Good. All right. Anything else? Karen?
Just to make sure I'm looking at the right line here, we're looking at conservation annual appropriation of $17,650. Is that the right number?
Yes.
Yep, it's up there.
So just because I'm new on the committee, I'd like to just get a sense of what you do with those funds. Just because I'm new on the committee, I'd very much appreciate hearing about what it is that those funds are used for. Is it maintenance of trails, things like that, et cetera? Thanks.
Well, I think the number one thing is trails and building material for trails. But educational outreach, printing and publication, invasive species, wetlands management, we find each year we're doing more in that regard. Forest evaluation, American chestnut restoration, memberships. Yeah, so that's what's in there. But the number one thing is trails and lumber.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Woohoo, here we go. I believe we're starting with general government buildings, right? And then we'll work our way down through. Before we kind of get into all those, I just want to kind of make a high-flying statement about the budget process overall for me. Obviously, this is my first time getting to build a budget for the town of New London, which has been really interesting and pretty exciting. Since the budget process here is new to me, and I only have a lot of my data that I use for like general government buildings and such is kind of 3-year average of the actuals. I think those are probably the most accurate numbers to continue to use for those types of things. After building our budget, or the Public Works budget, the selectmen kind of came back and said, is there any way any of the departments can kind of sharpen their pencils? And I took that as a challenge and really enjoyed it, and was able to kind of go back and look at things with a little bit closer magnifying glass, and I was able to find a few things totaling just about $20,000, along with eliminating one of our CIP items, which is the roadside mower. It ended up increasing a line item for a rental, but we don't have to take on the maintenance of that item or that piece of equipment if we choose to go in that direction. Those are kind of my main key points. Like I said, it was a lot of fun to do. I enjoyed it, and look forward to kind of answering questions and talking about it as we go down through. So I know you guys, it's a lot of line items to cover, so I'll let you guys kind of control the narrative and ask questions about, we'll start with the general government buildings and go from there, so.
Statement first, Sam. Thank you very much for the narrative and the level of detail, showing the math, showing the assumptions. That's helpful to us, was to me, and I know to the fellow committee members, and I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks. I've tried to work really hard on the narratives. Obviously, it's my first year, but I also do a budget in Wilmette for the fire department, and that's something that I've really been strong on is the narratives, because it usually helps alleviate a lot of the questions that are going to get asked anyway. So if I can just get that information out, it helps.
I agree. It's great to educate us as well. So specifically in buildings, cleaning supplies aggregated, cleaning services aggregated comes to, by my math, which we've seen earlier is not always accurate, $42,900 if you take all the buildings together, inclusive of the beach houses at Elkins and Buckland respectively. Is that all the same supplier?
So that would actually be, I was going to say no is the short answer. Lynn can probably touch on this more because that kind of comes from her.
So where I'm leading with that, just to continue it, is it an item that we should look at, and is it an item we should consider bidding? And that's where I'm leading with that question.
I'll answer the first part, you answer the second part. Okay, so we do not use we use the same cleaner for this building, police, our building.
Yeah.
The cleaning for the beaches is done by a different entity because they come more regularly and at 6 a.m. as opposed to the cleaner that we use for these buildings comes in the evening when we're not here. And I think that Kim and I have talked about possibly getting some bids on cleaning just to see where we're at.
Aggregate and see what that might generate.
If we could find a company that wants to do both,
Yeah.
we certainly could take a look at that.
Okay. The Academy building electricity is up 36% over the prior budget. That's budget to budget, so it's 5,000. And it includes a portion of our solar lease. Yeah, do you have a sense of, one, why the 36% increase, if I'm accurate in that, and budget to budget, and what portion of that line item is the lease?
I know this is supposed to be my budget, but I can't answer that question either.
So, okay, so.
But Lynn might be.
No.
Yeah, I cannot give you an exact number of what the cost for the solar is. That is dispersed amongst all the buildings,
Right.
that cost, but I can get that number for you. And it went up in the request this year because we were consistently going over on our actuals. So I brought it more in line with what we've been spending.
Okay. Repair and maintenance for the Academy building
That's you.
is a line item I had a hard time understanding when I was looking at it, and maybe it's just clarification, but it's it's a $25,000 line item. The budget was 7. The ask in the narrative was 14, but now it's 25. So it was
you're
kind of
looking at
bumping
Whipple.
all around. Am I reading it right or wrong? Whipple,
Yep.
then. Yeah, I'm sorry, Whipple. Sorry, pardon me.
Yeah, so I increased it just looking at the actuals because, in 2022, we spent 32,000, in 2023, we spent 17,000, 2024, we spent 33,000. We've only spent 4,000, but that, as of October, because Whipple also covers Bucher too,
Yep.
so the police
Yeah.
station, and I know that we've done extensive work to the sewer system inside the building that probably isn't being shown in the actuals, and I think it's close to probably $20,000 already. So I was trying to just align better with what I have been seeing, and also in the short period I've got to experience the budget, what I'm experiencing. I think some of it's just a result of old buildings.
So Sam, does that mean that the sewer expense for, is it Bucher?
Yeah, it's the plumbing, it was the plumbing in the building.
plumbing into the building.
Yep.
And is that now fixed, or is that not?
We're really hoping it's done, but it hasn't been put back fully. So like it's just concrete floor, no flooring, and part of their staircase is still removed because
Yeah.
they had to like jackhammer out the floor and replace the
So
plumbing
will
underneath.
that be done by the end of this fiscal year?
I don't think so, realistically. I think we'll end up, the stairs will probably be put back together just from a safety aspect, but we'll probably leave it unfloored and stuff until the new budget, just to make sure we're not gonna have to dig it back up. Because what ended up happening was we had to do more work, dig it back up, and so we were like, let's not go jumping on putting new flooring down and rebuilding the stairs if there's a continued problem. But I'm really hopeful and believe and pretty confident that we are done with the work, so.
Okay. So I don't know if that might be an area we could consider an adjustment in based on
Yeah,
that, plus the capital that was put into this building last year in the neighborhood of 250,000. I don't know that influences, I think it influences repair and maintenance, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, it does seem like it's obviously a difficult target to hit. I know like just on the flooring alone for the area that we had removed to do the plumbing work was a little over $10,000 is what they quoted us for. And like I said, I don't think we'll do that till the next budget, so the 2026 budget. So that right off the start would be a hit of around $10,000.
Okay. All right.
And then with whatever else comes up, I had our facilities employee Matt go around with me, and we looked at a lot of buildings and kind of identified a lot of areas of like low-level trim, door replacements, hardware replacements, stuff like that, and those would all fall under those line items. And we kind of noticed that in all the buildings. Matt does do a really good job, and then also with the asset management program that's coming for facilities in general, I'm kind of planning a little bit high because I think it will probably flush out some of the things that maybe we hadn't caught before, or might not be on our radar right now, so.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
My last question, BB can answer this one for me because it's the Elkins Post Office. So our cost of the building is $5,305. That's the operating cost associated with it. We get revenue from the U.S. Postal Service. Does the revenue offset the cost? And do we make a little bit of money?
We do make a little bit, a very little bit. But right now, yes, we are not in the hole on that.
Do we negotiate it with the government?
We have no negotiating power with the government whatsoever.
Oh, that's something new.
That's
Okay. All right. Thank you. Last questions from me, and then I'll cede to my members, the other members of the committee. Buckland Beach maintenance repair is a $9,000 item. Its 2-year average is $36.95. I chose 2 because the average was lower. But I know the building, it's concrete block building, and there's been work that's been done on it. Is 9,000 a necessary number, do you think?
I kind of planned that because of the sewer pumping fee that we always have there. I think I put that in the narrative
Yeah,
that
you
we
did.
have. And
It was there.
there's been years where it's up and down. I also was kind of planning for some work to be done to the fence along 114 there, Little Sunapee Road, just because it's aging, and we basically take it down and put it up every single year for snow removal. This year we're trying to leave it up because it's kind of falling apart to the point that I think we're going to have to start replacing some of the panels and such. And after seeing how much the fence cost at the roundabout, I was kind of scared of fence prices. So that's why that is a little bit higher. And again, Matt kind of cited some issues there that it needs some doors and some hardware and some low level like paint and trim and stuff, which I think in this market, unfortunately, is more expensive than we want it to be. But that was why that number landed where it
Thank
did.
you.
Yep.
Hi, Sam. I wanted to follow up on the reductions that you took after going back and taking a review. I think one of the areas you took a reduction in, a significant one, by bringing it down to 0, was the part-time wages.
Yep, that's under the highway, yep. And
Yeah.
So I had initially said that we wanted to fund that line so that we could try another seasonal part-time person. Upon further review of it, I kind of thought to myself, kind of 2 things. We hadn't used it in almost 3 years. We'd used it a little bit like 2.5 years ago. You'll see there's a small amount. And then I also thought, as the new person, I may be able to improve efficiencies and things, and also just kind of change some of our programs to maybe operate better, so we don't need that. So I'm comfortable saying we don't need the part-time employee for highway at this time.
So you see that going in a more, that seasonal direction?
Well, that position would have covered a part-time seasonal, most likely. That's what we've always done with it in the past. But there was times where they used a part-time person there in the wintertime. It's just kind of been all over. It's never really been a specific season or time, I guess, with it. So, but we keep part-time employees in our transfer station stuff. So that's just for the highway department, so to say.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Last question. Sam, you indicated in your narrative that the dam repair at Pleasant Lake that has a $20,000 place marker on it would be modified once you had a quote to support that. Has that happened? Do you anticipate it?
Yeah, I got a rough budgetary quote, and Wright Pierce told us between $18,000 and $20,000 without diving into it and charging us just to kind of figure out a detailed plan. They said $18,000 to $20,000 realistically to do the whole entire breach analysis plan there. So
Okay.
the number that that was actually the number that Kim recommended was $20,000. She says, I don't think a lot of things happen for $20,000 with things like that, and she was absolutely right. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
What is the requirement for the breach analysis plan? Where did that sort of come from?
When the state does their yearly inspection of the dam, they kind of give us a report that says what they think is coming down the pipeline and also what needs to be done immediately. And it was one of the things that they cited as it should be done sooner rather than later, just due to the age of it. And they said some of the data just being incorrect now with it seems like with FEMA and stuff like that. So
not too long ago, we addressed breaching of the dam. So that's no longer operative, I guess. Is that right?
yeah, I think it seems like from what DES said and from speaking with them, it was about 10 years ago that they did it. And it seems like it's about every 10 years you need to do a breach analysis for a dam of that risk and all those things that are associated with it. So.
Thank you.
Yep.
The heating fuels, basically, I see across the board decrease, it's solar, the cost of what?
Was there a question there?
I see heating fuel is decreased by, 29%, 23%. In most of the buildings, heating fuel, minus 5%, 27%.
Yep, so that's propane. And we got a really good deal on propane this year. I'm guessing I was estimating that we would have also a very good deal. We purchased we commit to 19,000 gallons. So we ended up, I think it was $1.42 a gallon. So I kind of went with that, and I don't think that I'm going to be, well, at the time I felt like prices had kind of steadied and that I would be okay on those numbers.
It's great diligence, thank you. My last, it's very simple. The town clock is, although in the church, it's owned by the town. How about the bell? Is that owned by the church or the town?
I thought we owned the bell.
Just the clock,
Only the clock.
just the clock. I guess the town wanted a clock, and they didn't have a big building to put it in, so it was a church, and that's collaboration right there.
Right, there you go. Not separated at all.
It's interesting to note, you realize the importance of that bell that not many people realize. It is one of the last 86 remaining Paul Revere bells left on the face of the earth. And we have one.
Sounds like it's got asset value that we could sell.
Sell the
Two
bell.
chances, slim and fat.
A quick question of clarification. At the top of page 9, there is a line item for advertising and regional association tourism. It appears like it falls into Sam's world, but it's not. Is that correct, Kim? Yeah. I didn't think so. Okay.
I'm thankful to give up any line I can to not have responsibility for.
Anything you
Come on,
don't
Sam,
get.
take one for the team. If they want to talk about it, go ahead, Sam. Take a shot.
Okay,
Town clock seems easier than that, so.
All right.
thank you.
Aaron? Anybody else? Wow, okay. Let's see.
I think the next one's actually cemeteries. It was missed in the agenda for tonight, so. Still page 8, yep.
Still
Middle of
page 8.
page 8 is cemeteries. So the equipment maintenance, maintenance and repair supplies, and then maintenance in general, the cemetery you'll see is zeroed. The selectmen chose to use the monies in the cemetery capital, is it capital reserve? Yep, capital reserve fund to cover it. I had put in numbers that I thought was things that we're gonna need: new lawnmower, continued work to the fence, so we don't have to hopefully paint the whole fence all at once again, and a few things like that. I actually don't have the budget numbers in front of me because the sheet says zero all across, but that is, I guess, from the selectmen, top down, so.
My only question is on Old Main Street, we expanded the cemetery significantly. Does that expansion affect ongoing just services and maintenance of that area that's gonna hit the line item but maybe isn't in the budget? Not that I'm-
I don't really think so. I mean, everything, like the road was built on recycled glass. What we'll top it with is bluestone that we have on hand kind of in general. So far, like out of pocket, it's basically just cost us time for, doing the work that we've done there as far as like adding some loam and material and stuff and kind of making it a cemetery. In the future, until it starts becoming used, we're gonna basically just plant grass and mow it once a year with a brush hog and keep it looking nice and stuff. But I don't think right off until it starts being used and filled in, we'll actually start having to, mow it and keep it mowed like, like a cemetery should be, so.
Thank
Yep. We talked about, yeah.
Okay. Sam, with regard to the cemetery, I know there were trees taken down and all. Do you have an idea what the cost was for that,
Yeah,
for
to
the
remove-
expansion?
To do the logging there, they logged and removed the stumps. I believe it was $8,000 if I remember correctly. Yep.
And the rest was time and,
Yeah, it was pretty
your-
much just time
your
and,
people?
fuel on the highway department and crew, and we didn't not maintain roads and things like that. It was kind of done on rainy days and when we had free time and things like that. So it wasn't really a burden to us, and it's still obviously not done, but we don't have a long waiting list for it, so I guess it's not a top priority. So, yeah, which is a good thing. There you go.
Exactly. Do we have an idea as to how many years forward that'll serve their community?
I was told 30 to 40 years that it would easily accommodate, so.
Excellent, thank you.
Okay. Anything on highway administration?
I just
That's
wanted to.
page 12.
Yep. I just wanted to touch on the part-time wages again and just kind of reiterate what I said before, that, looking at that we didn't spend it over the last few years, and then also thinking that, we might be able to change some things within our operations to make us more efficient and not need it. And I'm hoping that's going to work. I don't see why it wouldn't. We've already kind of had good improvements and some small changes that have freed us up time in mowing and weed whacking and things like that just by changing our program. So hopefully that will be good. You'll also see there's a new line for computer licenses down below. That is the continuing cost of our contract with the company to iWorks for the building asset management. That's kind of the operating cost year over year for it. There's also another line that's new down below that, which is equipment lease. Before that was kind of just shoved into office supplies, and that is the lease of our printer at Public Works. I wanted to touch on CDL training. That has been unused. It was a new line in the 2025 budget. It did not get used. I don't foresee it getting used for 2025. We didn't have an employee that was really ready to go through the course. I'm hoping, I know that we have an employee now, as long as he doesn't go anywhere, that is interested and willing to go through the course, but he won't be ready to go through it till, I think, fall realistically. So I'm really hopeful that we can use it and get another driver that's CDLA certified, so it takes some of the burden off the 2 employees we have now that are doing it, so.
Is that expense for one person 8,000?
Yeah, correct,
Okay.
yep.
Thank you. And just clarification on the asset management program, we pay an ongoing $3,000 lease or fee,
Contract fee, yep.
contracted fee for maintaining the system. We expended $50,000 for that last year to buy it, and now this is the ongoing maintenance. What's the status on the implementation of that asset program at this point?
So currently, the buildings are being assessed by Frank Anselone, right? And another group, and they are kind of going through, they're about to start the process of going through all the buildings and, getting the reports built and all that. We basically foresee, obviously, that we hope it's up and running sooner rather than later, obviously. But it's, I don't know, I don't really think there's really too much more to say on it in the aspect of it. I think
Continuing that just quickly, my understanding of the reason to do it was we would be able to more efficiently manage our buildings, repair and maintenance, renovation, and help in the scheduling of that, as well as the combining costs to potentially look at how we might think about service delivery that might give us an economy of scale. And those were the primary benefits that I understood from making that investment. So the sooner, and that is correct, and for why we did it. And based on, Sam, your current assessment of that program, do you think it has $50,000 worth of value?
I think the 50,000 was more to pay, the engineering fees and all that, like the system, like the iWork software, the buy-in.
Yeah.
I don't think it was 50,000. I think it was 7,000 or 8,000, and then has a reoccurring fee. But I think there is value in what was being done, and working with the wastewater asset management when that was first put in, probably 5 to 7 years ago, it made a huge impact as far as I think the way Bob built CIP, and I agree with a lot of the CIP things that he did because of the wastewater asset management, and then same with the stormwater one. I haven't really gotten to get my feet wet in that yet, but just kind of at a high altitude looking at it, it's going to be very beneficial. So I foresee the same outcome with the building asset management for sure. So,
Thank you.
yep.
Sam, can you tell us a bit about what that is going to look like when they go, the team led by Frank gets into the buildings? I mean, do they have a priority list? How long do you anticipate that may take?
They weren't really exactly sure how long it was going to take. There wasn't really a timeline on it, so to say. And they're really looking at big picture. They're not looking at, like, oh, you'll need to replace outlets in 2026. They were looking at mechanicals, roofs, frames, structures, things like that. And it's more of a big picture overview to hopefully give us a cleaner look at the future for what the building is going to need. So.
And how many people will be engaged in this, Frank? And you say, is it a team working with him? Or?
Yeah, he has a team that works with him. I don't exactly know the number of that. And then we'll have Matt, our facilities worker, go along with them, one, just to let them into the buildings, but then also to kind of give his input as maybe problem areas and things like that. So,
Thank you.
yeah.
Also wanted to ask, it looks like uniform cleaning services were ticking up. It's up from 9,000 to 12,005, and correspondingly, uniforms and safety equipment is up as well. Can you talk about, what's going on there?
Yep, so uniforms was something that we've always paid for people to have uniforms that, as soon as they start, they get uniforms, jackets, all those things, and then we have a laundry service for it. So the uniforms and cleaning service is just to obviously pay for that, and then also it covers if someone gets a lot of like damaged clothing or it gets too dirty for them to launder, they'll replace it, but we obviously have to pay for that replacement. So that's for the uniform cleaning services. And then uniforms and safety equipment, that one ticked up because I think that's an area that we've been deficient for a long time, is safety equipment. And so that covers such a plethora of things. I don't know if I have enough time to go over it in the aspect of just like safety vests, rain gear, hard hats. It covers safety toed shoes for people, or the allowance that we give them for it. The list kind of goes on and on. Gloves, safety glasses, sunscreen, ear protection, all those things. And it's just, they're all consumables. So they all have to, you have to replace a lot of it yearly. Same with chainsaw chaps and things like that. So luckily the guys use them, and so we have to replace them. So it's just costs a lot of money, but some of the equipment that we had was not up to snuff in my opinion, so we need to just kind of make sure that we're keeping our people as safe as possible. So
Thank you.
yeah.
Street lighting. We like it.
Yeah.
We can see. Anything street lighting? If not, we go to the transfer station.
Okay. Not to back us up, but we're good in highway streets. we went from highway admin, and I just wanted to go back to highway streets.
Okay.
Yep.
I started mucking around with the gas and diesel costs, and I actually came up with a higher number than your budget asked. But we're projecting 18,000 gallons of use this year, this coming year, 26, versus 16,100. Reason for that increase?
Probably just keeping crews a little bit busier in general, but then also the newer trucks are actually not as fuel efficient as the older trucks were. So the old trucks not having DEF and such could get probably 3 to 5 gallons per mile, and now they don't. Miles per gallon, and now they don't. The newer things that have the DEF fluid and stuff actually end up using more fuel, is what we're finding. So.
Okay. Am I correct to say sand, gravel, and all of that is in highway and streets?
Correct. Yep.
Okay, so bear with me.
Yeah, please.
This is going to be an unpopular statement. So I just back in the napkin a couple of things. If we total up the cost of our dirt roads, which consist of 6 miles total in the town, of 60 miles of paved road.
Yep, correct.
So there's a ratio in there, and I'm not sure my ratios will work out exactly, but this was my thinking, and this, based on where you are in your role, may be something to think about. If I add up the cost of maintaining our gravel roads and what we had in for, originally for a grader, if I used your number of average $62,000 to pave 1 mile of road, if we paved the dirt roads, except for Old Main Street, so there's objection to paving roads by those who are on those dirt roads. But if accepting that objection, if we pave them at a cost of $62,000, And that would cost us $372,000. We currently spend about, and I don't have the number right here, I did, so correct me if I'm misstating it. Our budget is $235,000 for paving. If we just paved those roads, eliminated the gravel that's needed for it, the calcium chloride that's used to dust deter and inhibit, and you're eliminating the cost of a grader because you're suggesting it's better, smarter to lease that than it is to buy the asset at a $600,000 value. The return on that investment would be pretty significant, and I'd have to recheck my numbers. But have you been thinking about that? If you are, what are your thoughts? And does that sort of analysis have any merit in your view?
Yeah, so, I mean, that's great observation because I basically agree. The only thing I'll say is that when we pave a dirt road, it requires, the 1 inch of pavement, that's $60,000 to pave a mile of road, that's overlaying a road. The paving services that we have in here was always basically used just for paving existing paved roads, so resurfacing them. To pave a dirt road, it requires 3 inches of pavement, so it requires 2 inches of base and then 1 inch of top. So you'd have to basically triple those numbers. But I do agree that, you could basically pave every dirt road in town for the cost of your grader. Even still though, like my ultimate goal would be for the town in London not to purchase another grader ever. In the aspect of run the one we have until it, the grader's the oldest piece of equipment we have and has the most amount of hours on it, but it's probably one of our most reliable pieces of equipment and costs us very little to operate and to maintain. It's just, for some reason, a good piece of machine. I guess it was built in a good year. But if the grader was to have a catastrophic failure now, I would not recommend we buy one. There's actually companies out there that will come in and grade your roads for you when you want them to. So even if we were to not pave another, inch of dirt roads, I still don't think it makes sense for us to own a grader with how few of miles of dirt roads we have.
Yeah. So if of the $235,000 that we spend on paving existing paved road, and you projected an average cycle of 10 to 15 years, I cut that at 12 and a half years just for taking the middle as opposed to the high end of that range, then are the conditions of the roads, I guess what I'm saying, here's my correlation. It is if I took the 12 and a half year mark for required repaving of section of road, the ratio of 10 years of repaving causes the budget to be higher. But if I took the 12 and a half years, I could argue a lower budget for my paving.
Yeah.
And if that were true, I would ask you to consider that and think, is there an opportunity for us to make some kind of adjustment to the $235,000 line item? So that's a lot in one.
Yep. I guess I will be honest, I got a little bit lost in the direction you're trying to go and where.
I will do it offline and work the math out with you, and then if it merits coming back to the committee, we could do that.
Okay, yeah.
The other item is there a political prize for our citizens that we serve when you say that we're going to pave the roads, i.e. Old Main Street and some of the other.
Oh, there's a political price to everything, Lou.
Well, Bob used to have that conversation too. He always wished that he could pave every single road in New London too, because it is a lot more costly to take care of the dirt, gravel roads. I get it. I would take one for the team, Charlie.
Thanks, Peter.
Good. Anything else on highways before we move to transport? Okay, Karen.
Looking at sidewalk maintenance, can you talk about what your plans are for that, Sam, please?
Yeah, the sidewalk maintenance, the main thing that I plan to address with that money that I'm asking for the increase on is just the truncated domes, like the things that basically let you know that you're coming to a crosswalk. They're for people that are visually impaired. The town of London, a lot of the ones in town are either were installed incorrectly or have actually worn out. And the ones that are worn out were the plastic ones that really aren't very good and they're really slippery. So we're looking to address those, but they're like $250 a piece and we have a lot of them. So, and then we'd also use any other funds there to do, preventative maintenance on the sidewalks that we have that are already in good shape. So like Seamans Road, Parkside Road, things like that. So if we could do some areas of crack sealing or seal coating or something like that on the sidewalks to preserve them so we don't have to repave them as often, that's what we plan to do, so.
I recall discussion in terms of the sidewalks impacted by the Main Street project, and of course, that has to sit for a year. But am I correct in understanding that you had in your plan to fix where appropriate, like seal, or where there's an egregious problem to address it on the surface? I mean, clearly not construction, but surface kind of maintenance.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything that's, against ADA is probably the easiest way to say it. We're going to try to correct, without putting a lot of money into it, just to make sure the sidewalks are traversable and as safe as possible at all times, so.
Thank you.
Yep.
Sam, don't be mad. I'm just kidding. I hesitate when there's so much of our sidewalks that are just not traversable in and of themselves to prioritize I call them tip downs, the little bumpy things at the end because letting someone know who has a handicap or, say they're blind, know that they're at a sidewalk and then have them traverse onto it and it be a disaster. I mean, they just don't even seem walkable in some places. So, and I know you have a plan. I just want to make sure that we prioritize, let's make them actually traversable.
We're going to stick to the plan and try to, fix them as we're going, or we will be fixing them as we go down through. So the sidewalk maintenance line item specifically is to things that are very specific to sidewalk. Truncated domes are one of them. I would say like certain areas of curbing could be the other, but paving services, bituminous products, gravel and all that can also go towards sidewalks. Obviously those aren't restricted just to roads, so we could use paving services to fix up some of the sidewalk areas and things like that. So it's not that there's only $5,000 and it can only go towards the sidewalks strictly. I was just using sidewalk maintenance is the things that I'd say are, you don't find them elsewhere. You don't find truncated domes in the middle of roads. And so the sidewalk plan that we made pretty much covers covers Main Street sidewalks only. And we have a lot of sidewalk elsewhere like Elkins and Parkside Road and Seamans Road and Pleasant Street. That's part of just the maintenance of them. So while we'll also be working on those truncated domes, we'll also be doing crack sealing, overlaying, and things like that on the other areas of town that we can hopefully get to before we have to fully reconstruct the sidewalks, is kind of what my thought is.
No, that's awesome. I want to emphasize, I think priority is, especially for Main Street, that's what I hear about and that's what other people hear, and I think we just want to make sure that we, even before we go out and pave roads, let's get our sidewalks walkable. I think it's a huge priority for a lot of people.
Yeah. I will second that with a question. Is it, when you say walkable, are you saying fully ADA compliant, or is there an additional cost to maintain, to having sidewalks that are ADA compliant, like for wheelchairs and stuff like that?
If the town's offering sidewalks in general, they have to meet
They have
ADA
to, okay.
compliance. Yep.
That's all I need.
Yeah, federal law, so.
Anything else before we go to?
Yeah, two quick ones. Okay, make it quick. Doing my job, Lou, doing my job. Signs, I hate signs. Our budget's $6,500, and if I average the cost of stop sign and other sign, it's $130 per sign, so that equates to 50 signs that we would be replacing. Is that?
I just used stop signs and whatever.
Other signs.
Yep, as like a benchmark to say this is kind of how much signs cost. We're not going to go and replace every single stop sign, but a sign that says Seamans Road on it, that sign can cost upwards of $300 to $400.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of signs in town that are not in good condition and need to get upgraded. We probably replace 35 to 50 signs a year. We have a really robust sign inventory right now, but we've kind of dwindled down on it a lot. So I'm kind of looking to restock that too. So.
I still hate signs. Never mind the budget. My other question was, this is a big, broader question about radios, radio repair and maintenance. You have 18 radios, and of which 4 are portable. Those require replacement and they require maintenance. We have the same configuration or different configuration in fire, and we have it in police. Are all our radios of the same make, model, capacity, or are they all different? So fire has different ones, police has different ones, and highway have different ones.
From what I understand, like the highway radios are a lot different in the aspect of they're not like a life safety radio, so they're more of a commercial radio that's just kind of like bought off the shelf, whereas to buy, and Emily can probably correct me, to buy like a police radio, you actually have to prove that you're a police department and are worthy of that radio, so to say, whereas highway can buy a lot cheaper radios because they're not life safety. So like our portable radios, we purchased on eBay and they were refurbished radios because they're not, transmitting.
Yeah, okay, and my question was if there was commonality, then there's an opportunity to volume purchase both from the asset point of view, but also repair and maintenance.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
Yeah. I don't have a lot to report on in transfer station. It's kind of staying pretty much the same other than our waste disposal. We renegotiated our deal with Mount Carberry, which is the landfill that all of our trash goes through, or goes to. Originally, they came back at like 68. We were able to kind of argue and say our trash is really good. It should be 66. And they, after a lot of discussion, went and said, okay, yeah, I guess. And part of that is New London's trash is good trash because we do a lot of recycling. So it keeps a lot of junk out of the landfills, which junk is not good in landfills because it doesn't break down the same way. And New London's trash is often used as like a capping trash in the aspect of when they put down a liner, they'll actually put good trash on top of it so it doesn't poke holes in it and stuff. So a lot of New London's trash doesn't have a lot of building construction and stuff that damages landfill liners. And they appreciate that, so they were able to give us a little bit better of a rate. Trash hauling fee is really up in the air. So we haul right now our trash to like the Meredith area basically, and then Jeremy Hiltz Construction, they haul it from there to Berlin to the landfill. Hiltz has kind of said that they're probably not going to continue the contract. Right now, they extended it only 6 months till June or July. And then after that, we're kind of on our own. We've always worked with Meredith because it's kind of the halfway point and used collective buying power to get another company to haul our trash from there, the rest of the trip, the other half of it, to Berlin. So I have been talking with Mike Fowler, he's the Public Works Director of Meredith, and trying to talk with other contractors to get the best deal possible to get our trash hauled from like the Meredith area to Berlin. We did look into bringing our trash directly to the incinerator, which is in Concord, and there's just one, it's a lot more money. It's like around $100 a ton, and we pay $66. And there's a lot of logistical problems with it, meaning like you can go to the incinerator and have to wait in line for 6+ hours. So now I lose an employee for the entire day while he waits to unload. And, and right now the employees that are hauling our trash are our highway workers. So I need those people, doing road maintenance and things like that. So I think doing it the way we have been is probably going to be the direction we're going to stay, but it doesn't mean that I'm going to, in 2 years, I'll be looking at it again to see if incineration has changed, because obviously I think incineration environmentally is the better thing to do now. It's kind of switched. It used to be the worst thing. Now it's much better because it's waste energy, and only 10% of the waste actually goes to landfills if you do incineration. And they've proven through a lot of studies that it's actually environmentally better than landfilling. Just right now the cost hasn't worked out. So
Yeah, both are lousy options, right?
yeah, unfortunately.
What does the landfill monitoring consist of that we are required to do?
So the state requires us, since we have a capped landfill, to come in and monitor it. So there is a company that comes in. There's many test wells down at the landfill, which are essentially a normal well that you'd find at your house. But they come and take water samples to make sure that the landfill isn't leaching. And because if it were to leach, then we would have a serious environmental issue. Plus, it may impact residents.
Does DES do that directly, or do we contract it to a particular?
Yep, correct. Yeah, and there's very few that actually, people that do it. Obviously, it's kind of a niche market, so.
Yeah. Last, compost collection, the cost is in the neighborhood of $10,244. There's a significant tonnage reduction offset to that.
Yep.
Those numbers, what's that number compared to the cost of?
So I think, I wish I had actually written this down, but I think we've removed almost 30 tons so far this year alone of compost, from the landfill, which obviously we can do a little bit of math and figure that out, but it's also an efficiency thing for us. So environmentally, it's a good thing to do too. In the summertime, we've often found that we have to haul 3 loads a week to the landfill. And since starting the composting program, we've only been hauling 2. This year, in 2024, we have yet to haul 3 loads in a week through the landfill. And the only thing we can directly relate it to is the composting. It's the only program, it's the only thing that's changed. And so there is a significant savings there. I don't think it outweighs the $10,000, but environmentally, I think it is the better thing to do, and it has helped too as far as the amount of trips we're making to the landfill. So,
Sounds like it's a good story, as well as a good practice, and as well as one that education still, as much as we think people know, don't, and the value that it provides environmentally and certainly from a cost perspective, if we increase that amount, I mean, I think there's all sorts of opportunity there.
yeah, I got to speak at a class that NRRA put on this year about composting. It was really interesting because there's a lot of other towns in the state that have tried to do it and have failed pretty bad and cost them a lot of money. And there was a lot of operators from other landfills or transfer stations that were there, and were just blown away by the success that New London's composting program has had, and that's hugely in part to the committee that we have that kind of took charge of that and initiated it. But it's also pretty cool to see. I mean, I probably receive more emails about composting in New London than I do anything else, which is pretty neat, I think. So,
yeah. Thank you, Sam.
yeah.
It's probably self-explanatory, but I'll ask anyways. The health and dental down 33%, does that reflect shifting from a family to single plan? Is that what's happening there?
I see Kim shaking her head, but
Yeah. It means somebody was hired that is taking a single plan, whereas last year I think it was an empty spot, so we budgeted for a family just in case. So that's where you see that dip up and down sometimes.
Great, thank you.
Just one question. Is there any part of our transfer station program where we would be able to seek revenue for the town?
we already do. We make the transfer station is, I think, one of the only departments that makes us revenue on a consistent basis. Cardboard makes us money, and yeah, I guess Will makes a lot more money. Okay, you know what? You got me there.
I like it.
Okay, well, geez, taking some heat. But yeah, the recycling of cardboard, paper occasionally makes us money. Textiles, which is like clothing, fabrics, books makes us money. Aluminum, tin, all those things. Even everything you basically see at the stump dump, except the refrigerators and like ACs and the brush. that all makes us money as well, and it all goes into the recycling revolving account. So, and there's been times where it's swept by the selectmen at the start of every budget cycle, and it goes down to $5,000. But there's been $35,000, $40,000 in that count before. And when I took over, Kim kind of said that it was started, we looked at the warrant article, it was created for basically anything to do with recycling to better or fix. And so I've been pretty aggressive in trying to use that to help offset a little bit of the operating costs where we can. So if there's something that's needs work, like part of the balers that we use to bale our aluminum cans or whatever it may be, if we can use some of that money for the repair costs, that's what we've been trying to do. So.
So about the revolving fund, you say anything above, well, it's swept down to 5,000.
Yep.
Does that go into what the purposes you were just describing, or does it go into the general fund?
It just goes back to the general fund.
Okay.
So my goal is to not give up anything more than $5,000. When we get there, hopefully there won't be anything for them to take. Because I'd like to see it go towards anything recycling we possibly can. And it's been helpful. I mean, I feel that the guys at the transfer station sometimes get the trashy job, and they definitely do. And so trying to fix some of the, the Gaylord totes that they have to use and the scales and stuff like that, and upgrading them with that money that isn't a burden to taxation, I think is great. So.
Okay. Anything else? All right. For the purposes of expediency, I would ask our committee members, would you mind if we joined item 6 and 7, which would be solid waste and sewer? That's pretty much very related. Okay.
Yeah, I think you guys kind of covered solid waste with the questions. The spatial waste drive is covered. That covers our hazardous waste day, which is we'll be hosting one in budget year 2026. And then that's also where your composting program comes from. The only other line is the landfill monitoring and solid waste cleanup. So then it would just be wastewater. Wastewater, I think you'll just see an overall reduction in a lot of places. One, we're not going to have 2 employees there just because we're trying to get wastewater to start making a little bit of money and not always bordering on a deficit. So with that, you'll see a lot of reductions down through the administrative part of it. And then looking at some of the more operational costs, obviously we can't do as much with just one person. So that changed it. But then also just looking at, averages and what we're actually doing to adjust that budget made a lot of sense. I think it's important to note that because that job went to one position, that doesn't mean that that person works alone in unsafe environments or anything like that. So we have people that are cross-trained in every single department. So someone from transfer can go to wastewater, and someone from wastewater can go to transfer or highway, all those things. So our wastewater employee is never, left out in the wind in the sense of he's not working alone in the roadway and things like that. So I think that's just important to note.
Just wanted to point out and to say congratulations again. I think this has been recognized in terms of our reduction in payments to Sunapee. So that's down 4%, and that's a really big number. So congratulations on that, and thank you.
Yeah, thank you. That was working with wastewater. I think when I got hired in the supervisor's position, I think when I got my interview with Kim, she said, you really need to try to get the numbers to Sunapee down. And I said, okay, that sounds like a pretty good, challenge. And it was a lot of fun, and we've had a lot of fun doing the work. I don't think you work somewhere that you don't enjoy the job, and people probably think wastewater, ooh, that doesn't sound fun, but it really is. It's kind of a challenge, and the crew that I was working with and all of highway and stuff are, we have good people, and they make it enjoyable to do it, and we work as a team and problem solve, and it's been fun. So, and I'm glad that we were able to get it down. That's a huge savings to the town, so something to be proud of.
Terrific, and I think along those lines too, you lined, well, not you personally, but your team, you brought in an outside vendor that lined the sewer lines off of Squires, and
Yep.
how was that worked out? I mean, I saw them doing the work over the summer, and it was really, they were a great crew. They did it. They explained it all. They showed you the TV screens, and did that all work out Yeah, it
according to
went
plan?
absolutely flawless. It really did. I mean, I'm still flabbergasted by the whole process of slip lining, and to wrap your head around, it's pretty incredible. But yeah, it went really well, and we've already noticed just through our normal inspections a reduction in like I&I in that area, which is inflow and infiltration into the wastewater system. So that all contributes to that percentage that we send to Sunapee. So the more of that we can do, the better. So.
Great. Terrific, thank you.
Yeah.
I'd also just like to point out, I mean, wastewater is critically important. We ship it all the way to Sunapee, and a break in the line anywhere near a lake or any of the, you know, in the watershed, it's critically important. And we had a break not too long ago at George's Mills, and they were working round the clock. So it's critical, and it's great that we do have those cross-trained people, because then we have the assets ready to be called upon. So, well done, Sam. I wish I'd asked you earlier to deal with Sunapee.
Question on the sewer system, the sewer collection, et cetera. Do you have a line for the eventual replacement of the generators for each one of the stations?
Yeah, so there, I think you'll probably see a warrant article at town meeting, right? So the town got a bond, right, to start replacing some of the major generators at Main Plant and George's Mills, which is probably our highest risk generator areas, and then kind of working down from there. So, yep.
But it's not is it reflected?
No, because it was last year, yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Anything else? Any other questions from our committee members? Oh, wow. Okay, and let's see, that takes us to the end of Public Works. One last chance. Okay, questions from the audience. Okay, Mr. Cardillo.
Joe Cardillo, just welcome, first of all. I'm hearing all good things, and I can see why. You did a great job tonight digging through it. I've lost track of certain things, so this is just really general questions. Looking at the highway facility and then transfer station, I know we were in need of certain things going on. Have we ever sprinkled? Was there a building that still needs to be sprinkled down at your facility? And is that on the, or did we complete that?
I don't believe, it would be the front shop that doesn't have a fire suppression system in it. I don't think it was required by fire code, and that was why they decided not to do it.
Not to go that road.
I wish Jay was here because he'd be able to answer that
Okay.
more accurately, but I was under the impression that it didn't need the sprinkler system. It was thought that it might need it. I think, putting sprinklers in something's always great, but that building's also
Right.
100 years old and may not be worth that.
And then just going forward, maybe you could speak to it in general terms, or we can take it offline. Are there some things that, I look at your facility, I look at the way you guys work, and some of the things that would be nice things to have. And we've talked about, as a group, when we had a building facilities committee in the past, were things like you guys are out plowing all night. I know there's I don't know if we still have employees that don't reside in town, maybe Salisbury, other places. There was always a conversation about creating some kind of additional space down there for not necessarily bunk rooms, but maybe a couple of bedrooms and showers and facilities down there. Are there any plans in the works for those kind of things? Because I look at your staff. You've got a guy like Matt Grimes now, who's been with us for a few years, who maybe has the capability of pulling some of these things off internally. He's capable, right?
Yeah.
So.
When I first started, that was something that we talked about because, I think every person that works for Public Works has spent the night in their vehicle in the parking lot before. And we had this conversation of, well, maybe what could we do to fix this? And we kind of went, well, maybe we don't need to reinvent the wheel. So I had a conversation with Jay Lyon about could we use the fire station? You have bunk rooms that are there and locker rooms that are potentially not getting used, or maybe they are, but what's a few more bunkies going to hurt in the aspect of could we use that if we've been plowing all night? And he said, absolutely. Again, I wish he was here, but that was something we've talked about. And so we were talking about how we can kind of make that work. If it's just giving our guys the door code and then making sure they clean up after themselves, then, no need to add more or reinvent the wheel if we already have that asset. So
More creative solution and quite cost effective.
Yep,
So
that's what we
good.
think. Yep.
Thanks, again, welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Just to pick up on one of Joe's points, with regard to the sprinkler system potentially in the office garage building, even though it may be an older building, do you see any value of having a sprinkler system there? Is there equipment that's stored there that would be, or even safety for the workers that are there? Is that something that you would see?
So,
They'd like to
well, just for
consider?
clarification, the main building down back, which is the largest building and the newest building, is fully sprinklered. It's just the front smaller shop, which is just the 4-bay garage with the offices attached. Again, I don't think sprinkler systems obviously never hurt, but I think it would be probably a bigger ask than I could answer right now to say if it would be worth it to sprinkle the building or not. I don't know what that entails as far as bringing a bigger water line into the system, into the building and all that. Like, you may basically exceed the value of the building with the sprinkler system if it doesn't need it, you know, if it's not required. So I think that's maybe a bigger question that I'm not prepared to ask or answer.
Okay, so something to follow up on then, maybe?
Yep, absolutely. Something to think
Thank
about
you.
more and follow up on. Yep, thank you.
Any other business? Okay, and let's see, the next meeting is January 8th. We will cover library, recreation, health, welfare, energy, housing, archives, patriotic purposes, social service organizations, and protective associations. It's going to be a lot to cover. So,
I think it's too much.
other business, may I hear a motion, please? Okay,
Second?
Charles, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those against?
Aye.